There's something I've been struggling with for a few years now. I live in Oklahoma, and I'm studying to be a Lutheran pastor. And I spend a lot of time as part of that study reading scripture and studying theology and thinking about what it really means to follow Jesus. And the more I study Jesus, the more confused I am about the version of Christianity that seems to dominate so much of American public life. I don't mean that as an attack. I have a genuine question. How did a movement founded by a man who taught us to love our enemies become so closely associated and affiliated with and co-opted by this idea that we should be angry at our political opponents? How did a teacher who spent so much time with the outsiders become associated with excluding people for being other? How did someone who consistently challenged the power of empire become suddenly the mascot for power? I don't have the answers, but I want to explore those questions, which is why I started this channel. So, welcome to the Long Discipleship. My name is Brian, and I'm a seminary student in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. And I've been serving in a congregation here in Northeast Oklahoma while I've been preparing for ordained ministry. And over the last few years, especially in seminary, my faith has not become weaker, but it has become more complicated. Some of the things that I once assumed were obvious seem a lot less obvious to me now, and some of the things that I ignored are now impossible to ignore. Some of the teachings of Jesus that I once treated kind of just as spiritual ideas now actually seem like they were intended as instructions for how we live. This channel isn't going to be about having everything figured out. This is going to be a place where I continue to think out loud as I continue to learn and to grow. But I want to be clear about something. I'm not going to be anti-Christian on this channel. I'm actually going to be quite the opposite, because I care enough about my faith and about Christianity to ask difficult questions of it. So though I'm located in a very conservative state, I'm not going to be devoted to attacking conservatives. I'm not going to be devoted to defending liberals or really to partisan politics in general. There are plenty of places online where you can go hear people yell at each other. I'm not interested in creating another one. What I'm very interested in asking are questions like, what did Jesus actually teach? What does the gospel require of us? What happens when we take those teachings seriously? Where does the church get it right? Where does the church get it wrong? And how do we as Christians engage in public life? How do we follow Jesus in a world that seems determined to divide people into tribes? The older I get and the farther along this journey towards ordination I go, the less convinced I am that being a Christian is primarily about believing the right things. More and more, I'm actually convinced that Christianity is about becoming the kind of people Jesus calls us to be. People that love our neighbors. People who welcome strangers. People that forgive. People that seek justice and who tell the truth. People who care for those that have been pushed out to the margins. None of those things are easy. In fact, they're almost always deeply uncomfortable. But the teachings of Jesus challenge everyone. They challenge conservatives and liberals. They challenge you, and I'm sure they challenge me too. But when we read the Gospels, we don't encounter a Jesus that spends much time making people comfortable. Rather, we see a Jesus inviting people into transformation. Living in Oklahoma and serving in this state has really sharpened these questions for me. Because this is a state that is filled with churches. It's a state filled with faithful people, people who genuinely love God. And yet it's also a place where political identity and religious identity often become tangled together. Sometimes they get so tightly tangled that you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. So that reality for me raises questions that I want to explore. Questions about nationalism and about race, about immigration, about poverty and power, about what it means to love our neighbors even when we disagree with them. Again, this isn't a place where you come to seek answers, but as a Christian, I believe we have to be willing to ask these hard questions of our faith and of each other. So over the coming weeks and months, I want to talk about things like what Jesus meant when he said to love our enemies. What the Bible actually has to say about wealth and poverty. How our faith interacts with themes of Christian nationalism, about race and reconciliation. How we think about immigration and what is actually the purpose of the church in the world. I want to engage with what our Lutheran theology has to contribute to these types of conversations and why grace matters. And what does discipleship actually look like when we live it out? So you can expect that I'm going to have some videos that are deeply theological. There's probably going to be some that are going to be political. My background is in political science. Some of these are probably going to be personal. But you can hear this. I promise that each and every video that I make that you get to see will be an attempt to think about these things faithfully. So if you're watching this and you find out that you already agree with me on everything, that's fine. But that's not really who this channel is for. If you're watching this and you disagree with me on everything, that's fine too, because you're welcome here. But what I want this to be is a place where we can think deeply and listen carefully and take Jesus seriously. Because Jesus doesn't belong to the left or to the right. He belongs to each one of us. And because Jesus is constantly calling all of us, each of us, to live beyond ourselves. So thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next video. And if you've got a burning question on your mind or you want to hear what I have to think about it, put it in the comments below and I'll make a video about it. Peace.